Meet the conservative women who are keeping their votes for Kamala Harris a secret. Man, I do feel bad for these women, but I can't help but feel a bit of contempt towards them at the same time. I feel like in a lot of cases they're spineless. It's like the systemic problem, but individually also, right? Like, you can point to systemic issues that lead to black crime rates or whatever, and you can point that out and go like, hey, you need to fix the systemic issues. You can't just say individually, hey, stop being born in the ghetto. What are you talking about? But also, like, on an interpersonal level, if I met someone who, I don't know, shot some other guy in the corner for drug money, I would say, that was probably bad of you to do. I think that was cringe. Their message is aimed at conservative-leaning women like T, whom we're calling by her first initial. T, who is in her 60s and lives in Wisconsin, asked for anonymity to discuss how living in a politically divided household is affecting her marriage of more than 40 years. He's frustrated with me that I won't listen to him plead his case. I can't and I won't, she explained. How are you in this relationship? I genuinely, like, don't get it. I don't understand how a person can be. It's one thing if you're in a loveless relationship due to circumstances beyond your control, but for a lot of these women, the implication from the way they talk about this is very much like, oh, he's such a sweetheart, and I just tune him out when he starts screaming, frothing at the mouth about wanting to drink the blood of immigrants or something, you know? Husband got brain melted over the years, many such cases. I'm not gonna lie, I really feel like if that's the case, it's your responsibility as a wife to maybe direct your husband in a bad. I understand that in a lot of relationships that dynamic is impossible because the men are awful, but if that's the case, if they're awful enough that you can't direct them like that, like, they just don't talk about politics probably, I don't get that either. A shocking amount of couples don't communicate at all. Yeah, that really seems to be the case. They don't talk about anything of value. They talk about, like, the day or what they're doing that day. There's no, like, higher level engagement, I guess. I don't know, man. I mean, we're talking about people who grew up during the age of TV where the biggest punchline was my bitch wife. So, excuse me. I mean, a ton of these women are literally in abuse dynamic. Yeah, I understand that. But also, like, and pardon me for, uh, being a little chauvinistic about it. But, like, I do feel the spinelessness in a lot of cases is a bit contemptuous. I don't know. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. There are a lot of circumstances where you can't do much about it, but sometimes it's like, you can only hear the same story so many times. Hey, I'm a 55-year-old woman, my husband is objectively evil, but, like, okay. When I see the image of, like, every third hetero couple, and the girl is like, hey, did you read the Salon article that I emailed you? And the guy has the t-shirt that says most racist man alive. I don't only feel contempt for the guy. Like, the guy isn't the only contemptible figure in that caricature, you know? I do get it for rural couples. I mean, past the point you have, like, the sunk cost fallacy and there's only so much you can do and such. But I feel like this attitude often started somewhere. Like, you don't begin 40 years into a relationship, right? And you know what? And you know what? For a lot of these white couples that are in their 60s and 70s in the Midwest, you're not fooling me. You're not getting me to feel sympathetic. I know what these motherfuckers were doing when they were kids, okay? A lot of these people were literally growing up in, like, the 60s and 70s and 80s. You're telling me that in a lot of the cases here, they weren't both, like, pretty bad politically? And then it just, over time, they just, like, it tapered out because they didn't want to make their frothing bigotry, like, a day-to-day part of their life. And then, like, the MAGA movement reignited that in the guys because the MAGA movement is extremely, like, chauvinistic. And it didn't reignite it in the women. And the women have kind of shifted off more due to, like, abortion rights stuff. Like, listen, okay? I'm not falling for the white women defense. This phenomenon with, like, oh, we're both 60 and my husband's awful, but, like, he's a sweetheart otherwise, this is a white thing. I'm not saying it doesn't happen in other racial dynamics. I'm just saying this is definitely, like, a pronounced phenomenon in this context. T says she mailed her absentee ballot from another family member's home to avoid a confrontation with her husband over her support for Harris. It's not that he would ever stop me or anything. It's that I can't deal with that animosity, she said with an audible sigh. T said she'd voted Republican her entire adult life. Yeah. Until Trump became the nominee in 2016. She describes Trump as misogynistic and a buffoon. Yeah. One of those moments when Trump held up a Bible in front of a church near the White House after calling in police to shut down a protest in 2020. This is when Trump held up the Bible upside down and he called in like riot police to disperse a peaceful protest just so he could have a photo op of him holding the Bible upside down. I remember. I was horrified. That was actually when I left the Republican Party, Kay says. She lives in a red state in the Midwest and asked that we use her first initial because of fear of losing her job. Kay said she hasn't told most of her family, including her husband, that she's voting for Harris. He assumes I'm voting Republican. I just listen to him talk about his views, and I just nod my head and go, uh-huh. And I'm thinking, yeah, and my nieces have less bodily autonomy and rights at their ages than I had. I hate you too, lady. Why aren't you saying anything? You're not defending your children? And your nieces? You're just going to, like, I know that there's an element of like, well, then he kills her with a lead pipe. Okay, I get it. But that's not the case for all of these dynamics. The kids aren't there. Yeah, but like still having like, don't you think that weighs on a family having like a bigot grandpa who like rambles and rambles about how Tren de Aragua is overriding like overrunning Colorado, and his wife is just like okay, but internally she disagrees. Like, come on, we can't write over every instance of spinelessness on account of the potential for domestic abuse. I know it's a factor, but like, damn, I really think that to a lot of, I mean, these people were Republicans up until recently. You know, it's not like they have principles. At least they don't have the right principles. Also, and you know what? And you know, I'm going to take a step further. I'm going to say that probably a lot of families are really tainted by having that like surly, grumpy, borderline abusive patriarch who is a right-wing dipshit, but nobody calls them on it because they're old or because they figure it like he's too old. So it's like, you know, who even cares? He'll be dead soon. Or we don't want to upset the family dynamic. We don't want to upset the family dynamic by challenging our Hitlerite grandpa, so we're just going to let him ruin every single family event that we all go to. He every time he will find something to fuck up the whole event, but we all have to kowtow to him. I am attacking that behavior. If you allow that shit to happen, like, you are enabling it. You're an enabler. It's like, if it's a grandpa, he's not gonna kill you. He's old. His bones will dissolve into dust if he tries. You can like make fun of him and call, like, say he's garbage or whatever, and walk slowly backwards, and he'll never catch up to you. You can do like you can do whatever. Uninvite him from parties. Talk to people about it. Like, I don't know. I don't respect the enabling. We need like a genuine national divorce from these people, okay? You can't keep like, because half the reason the only way people fall into bad ideologies is by being immersed in communities that encourage and tolerate it. If people are in communities that don't tolerate it, people generally don't join those ideologies. That's why the internet has been so big for extremism. Because before, if you really wanted to stick your dick in a toaster, you would tell, like, I don't know, your first girlfriend in high school, and she would say, don't be a... But nowadays, if you Google dicktoaster.com, you find 1,000 other people who agree with you, and then you fall in, and you're posting like updates every day, like, you know, update, unplug the toaster only 6 seconds before putting my dick in, still toasty and warm, but not enough to burn. What about you guys? Posting pictures of it, like, and videos, and now you've ruined your life. There would be a lot less of this shit if people in these family dynamics would actually challenge the people who are ruining it for everyone. That's all I'm saying. Vosh, this was my family until I started speaking out against my dad. He's dead now and my mom is voting for Kamala. Holy shit, you debated him so well that he died? It's incredible. That's a tactic. Really, though, like, good on you for standing up for yourself. But a lot of the time his conflict is what they want. Yeah, which is why when I say shut them down, I don't mean debate them. If you have a shitty family member who ruins every single group event by like, oh, you're telling me Kamala isn't actually, wasn't a prostitute in Harlem in 1967? Let's debate about it. Here's some photo. They love conflict because they're often abrasive assholes who enjoy being angry at other people. Don't engage with them. They're never going to change their mind if they're at that point. I don't go to larger family events, probably for good reason, because a lot of my extended family's in Florida, Alabama, Georgia, and Texas. So it's probably to my benefit and theirs that I stay kind of like cordoned off to my own community, which is fine by my, you know, I would, what are they going to do? Kill me? Honestly, I'd probably ruin it for them. Just make them feel unwelcome. Or you could just leave. If you're at a family event, like Thanksgiving's coming up, if you're at Thanksgiving and your dipshit MAGA uncle or whatever won't shut the, you can literally say like, this is ridiculous. You ruin every event. No one here likes listening to you. I'm just going to leave. I'm not interested. You're a waste of space. And just leave. If you blow it all up, how much do you even care about the dynamic that you have with so much of your extended family? Because they're the abrasive assholes, they get to decide whether or not you're friends? Why doesn't it go both ways? Why don't you get to decide that? Now, I get it if you're like 16 and you're still like your parents will disown you or some shit. Don't be stupid. I'm saying that there are a lot of people who are still like 22, 23, 24. Your family's shit, or maybe your family's just tolerant or like enabling, and your extended family shit, and you just like roll along with it because you have to. Put your feet down. Plant your feet in the ground. I'm not even saying you necessarily have to blow it all up, you know? I'm saying that like you have to exercise some personal autonomy, because if you don't and you just sit there passively, you're an enabler, which is worse than just being a victim. You're a victim and you're like perpetuating the circumstances of your own victimhood. You're enabling it. And by the way, it's not good for them either, okay? If you have a dumbass MAGA uncle who ruins every family get together with this kind of shit, trust me, their life's not going great. Okay, these guys gonna die of a heart attack at like 58. Their blood pressure's through the roof. Like, they're not living a good life. They're angry and miserable, and they don't connect with the people around them, and they're not socially competent enough to understand that everyone in their family hates them. Look, I'm again, exercise personal discretion. If you think like, oh, my parents will hit me with a brick if I do that, like, you know, don't be stupid. But I'm just saying, like, generally, let's just finish the article, okay? Let's just finish the article. A, who's 35 and lives in Illinois, asked we only use her first initial because she's worried about backlash from her religious community. She says she voted for Trump in the last 2 elections. Christ. But after a period of soul-searching, decided to vote for Harris this time. She says she was teetering about whether to vote at all, in part out of fear of criticism if anyone close to her found out how she voted. Look, I respect you changing your mind. I respect that. That's respectable. That's a difficult thing to do. That's respectable. It's a difficult thing to do. I'm not shaming a person for the process of changing your mind. It's just frustrating. Like, here, A says she's keeping her vote a secret from her boyfriend, and especially her father, committed Republican. She said she thought about her daughters making the decision. Okay, let me put it this way. If you thought about your daughters when you were making that decision, how do you feel about your daughters growing up under the boyfriend and the grandfather that you have to keep this vote a secret from? Like, if you're motivated by some like greater consideration here, it's not just about the vote. Black folk don't be keeping the vote secret from the family. That's not impressive. You all vote Democrat. I've seen the numbers. I'll tell you who's keeping the vote secret. It's the like 19-year-old black guys who are into crypto who are voting for Trump. They're the ones who keep the vote secret, okay? It's the opposite dynamic there, okay? You go to a Black Thanksgiving and you're like, yeah, I voted for Trump, then they're going to beat you to death with the collard greens, okay? I understand. And you deserve it. With the goddamn okra. True. Again, look, like, I'm sympathetic. I'm not with, it's not a lack of sympathy. I just know that in a lot of cases, the vote is being treated like this distinct thing, like this in a vacuum, this moral consideration. But then for the rest of your life, it's like, well, okay, I'm also like, I'm concerned about what Trump would do for women's rights, but I will now, as a woman, spend my entire life under the thumb of like a chauvinistic father, boyfriend, such and such. Like, you know, I won't take any agency over my own life. There are just a lot of like sad older white women who have wasted their lives because they've spent their whole life kowtowing to the conservative men And in a lot of cases, they don't really have too much of a choice. But like, then the kids the kids grow up, and the dad is shitty, like abusive and emotionally distant and right wing, of course. And the mom is quietly right wing, but in private moments, she'll be like, "Yeah, your father and I don't really don't really agree on that necessarily." But it doesn't like protect the kids, you know? It's like a moment of quiet sympathy in a life of tiptoeing around the shitty dad. I know I'm not unsympathetic. I'm not saying that like these women are all evil. I get it's a difficult dynamic. For a lot of them, having like divorcing, leaving with the kid, that would be like a huge, like a almost impossible thing. So I get that. It's just frustrating. It's just frustrating. That's it. Maybe, Mr. Wynn. Vosh, you sound pretty shitty, honestly. Yeah, well, they crucified Christ, so, you know, I stand in good company. This is one of those subjects where if you talk real, someone will get mad. Like, unfortunately, like you can cushion any statement that is correct with as many caveats and I understands and I'm sympathetics as you want. But like, ultimately, you have to just make the point eventually. So, you know, I think politics is just not that important to them. I don't believe that. I don't believe that politics could be unimportant to someone who is actively hiding their vote from their family. You know? I think they have to know it's important because otherwise they would just avoid the you know, abrasion and not vote at all. They would just disengage from it entirely. They'd be like, okay, whatever. I don't think it's that they don't think it's important. I just think that a lot of people don't have a good model of how to engage with politics in a way that kind of accounts for their whole life and everything in it. It's got to be a really bad dating environment for young women, man. Really, really bad. I guess women at every level, and I know that America ain't the worst of it, but like, god damn, man. South Korean gender politics incoming, yeah. Lesbians are having a great time. Correction, I have been on Twitter, and my understanding is that lesbians are always miserable and complaining. Can you blame them? They're always around other women. Hey, woo, woo, slide whistle. You hear the slide whistle when I did the thing? Yeah, got him. Hey.